I will never forget the moment I saw my 3-month-old daughter Emma hooked up to life support machines, her tiny chest barely rising and falling, wires and tubes covering her fragile body. The steady beeping of monitors was the only sound proving she was still alive. Just hours earlier, I had buckled her into her car seat for what should have been a simple trip to the pharmacy. But I never made it to the pharmacy. Neither did Emma, because while I ran back inside to grab my forgotten wallet, a 17-year-old punk named Tyler Martinez decided to steal my car, with my baby inside. He drove drunk. He drove reckless. He crashed into a tree at 60 miles per hour while texting on his phone. Tyler walked away without a scratch. My daughter almost died. But here is what Tyler and his mother, Corinne Martinez, did not know. I was about to make sure they paid for what they did to my family. My name is Sarah, and 3 months ago, my life changed forever when Emma was born. She was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and the most beautiful blue eyes I had ever seen. But becoming a new parent in Willowbrook Estates was like trying to find peace in a war zone. Willowbrook Estates looked like paradise from the outside. Perfectly manicured lawns, pristine sidewalks, and houses that belonged in magazines. The kind of neighborhood where people paid 6 figures just for the privilege of living behind the gates. But underneath all that beauty was something rotten, something controlled by Corinne Martinez and her spoiled son Tyler. Corinne Martinez was the HOA board president, and she ruled our community like a dictator. She was in her early 50s, always dressed in expensive clothes, and never missed a chance to remind everyone who was in charge. Her 17-year-old son Tyler was just as bad, maybe worse. He had been raised to believe the rules did not apply to him, and his mother made sure they never did. I had been dealing with Corinne's harassment for months. Violation notices for leaving my trash can out 30 minutes too long, fines for having the wrong shade of white paint on my mailbox, threats about my garden being 2 inches over the property line. Every week brought a new complaint, a new fine, a new reason why I was supposedly ruining the neighborhood. Meanwhile, Tyler Martinez was turning our quiet streets into his personal racetrack. He drove his lifted truck at 50 miles per hour through school zones. He threw parties that lasted until 3 in the morning with music so loud it shook windows. He spray-painted graffiti on community property and vandalized other people's cars. But whenever neighbors complained, Corinne would dismiss it as boys being boys or claim there was no evidence. The other residents were too scared to speak up. Corinne had a way of making life miserable for anyone who crossed her. Property liens, harassment campaigns, and constant violation notices until people either fell in line or moved away. She had driven out at least 5 families in the past 2 years, and everyone knew it. That Tuesday morning started like any other nightmare. Emma had been teething for weeks, crying through the night and only sleeping for 20 or 30 minutes at a time. I was running on maybe 2 hours of sleep, stumbling around the house like a zombie. My husband was at work, and I was handling everything alone. Emma was screaming in her crib, her little face red and swollen from teething pain. I had given her infant pain medication, but nothing seemed to help. She needed stronger medicine, and I needed to get to the pharmacy before it closed. The nearest 24-hour pharmacy was 30 minutes away, and with Emma in this condition, I could not wait. I gathered everything quickly: diaper bag, baby carrier, car keys, and my phone. Emma was still crying as I buckled her into her car seat, her little fists waving in the air. She looked so small and helpless, and all I wanted was to get her the medicine that would make her feel better. I loaded the car seat into the back of my Honda Civic and was about to get in when I realized I had forgotten my wallet. It was sitting on the kitchen counter where I had left it after paying for groceries the day before. I looked at Emma through the window. She had finally stopped crying and was starting to fall asleep in her car seat. The house was only 20 feet away. I would be gone for 30 seconds, maybe less. I left the car doors unlocked because I was coming right back. I rushed inside, grabbed my wallet from the counter and hurried back outside. That was when my world fell apart. My car was gone. I stood in my driveway, staring at the empty space where my Honda Civic had been parked just moments before. For a few seconds, my brain could not process what I was seeing. Cars do not just disappear. This had to be some kind of mistake. Maybe I had parked somewhere else. Maybe I was more tired than I thought and had forgotten where I left it. I ran around to the side of the house, checking the street, looking for my silver Honda with the baby on board sticker in the back window. Nothing. That was when the reality hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Someone had stolen my car, with Emma inside. I started screaming. Not words, just pure terror and panic coming out of my throat. I fumbled for my phone and called my husband David. David, someone stole the car. Emma was in the car. Oh God, Emma was in the car. What do you mean someone stole the car? Sarah, slow down. What happened? I went inside for my wallet. I was gone for 30 seconds. When I came back, the car was gone. Emma is in the car, David. Our baby is in the car. I was hyperventilating, barely able to get the words out. David was asking more questions, but I could not focus on anything except the fact that my 3-month-old daughter was somewhere out there with a car thief. Neighbors started coming out of their houses. Mrs. Chen from next door had heard me screaming and came running over in her bathrobe. Mr. Rodriguez from across the street was walking his dog and saw the commotion. What happened, Sarah? Mrs. Chen asked, putting her hand on my shoulder. Someone stole my car with my baby inside. I need to call the police. I need to call 911. Mrs. Chen took my phone and dialed 911 while I paced back and forth in my driveway. I kept looking down the street, hoping to see my car coming back, hoping this was all some terrible misunderstanding. 911, what is your emergency? This is Mrs. Chen at 1247 Maple Drive in Willowbrook Estates. My neighbor's car was just stolen with her infant daughter inside. We need police and an ambulance here immediately. The dispatcher asked for details while I continued to panic. Make and model of the car, description of the baby, how long had the car been missing. Every second that passed felt like an hour. Then Mr. Rodriguez called out from across the street. Sarah, you need to see this. I have security cameras on my front door. We rushed over to his house and he pulled up the footage on his phone. The timestamp showed exactly when I had gone inside to get my wallet. At first, the video showed my car sitting peacefully in the driveway. Then, a figure appeared walking casually down the sidewalk. My blood turned to ice. It was Tyler Martinez. The video showed Tyler walking up to my car like he owned it. He looked around once, then opened the driver's door and got in. No hesitation, no hurry, like stealing cars was something he did every day. The car backed out of the driveway and disappeared down the street. That little bastard, Mr. Rodriguez muttered. I knew that kid was trouble. I watched the video 3 more times, unable to believe what I was seeing. Tyler Martinez had walked up to my car, seen my baby in the backseat and driven away anyway. He knew Emma was in there. He saw her car seat, her diaper bag, everything. And he did not care. The police arrived within minutes. Officer Johnson was a middle-aged man with kind eyes, but when I showed him the security footage, his expression changed completely. Tyler Martinez, he said, shaking his head. I know this kid. He has been in trouble before, but his mother always gets him out of it. I don't care about his mother, I said. I care about my daughter. She is 3 months old and she is somewhere out there with that psychopath. Officer Johnson radioed for backup and put out an APB on my car. Silver Honda Civic, license plate number JKL 4829, infant passenger in the backseat. Armed and dangerous was added to the alert, though we had no idea if Tyler had any weapons. We are going to find your daughter, Officer Johnson promised. Every unit in the county is looking for your car right now. But as I stood in my driveway, watching police cars race off in different directions, all I could think about was Emma, my tiny, helpless baby girl, trapped in a car with a reckless teenager who had already proven he did not care about anyone but himself. The phone call came 47 minutes after Tyler stole my car. 47 minutes of pure hell, packing my driveway while police officers asked questions and neighbors stood around whispering. 47 minutes of imagining every possible horrible outcome. Officer Johnson's radio crackled to life first. Unit 23 to dispatch. We have a 1054 on Highway 7, single vehicle collision. Silver Honda Civic, license plate JKL 4829, requesting medical transport immediately. My legs gave out. I fell to my knees on the concrete, the world spinning around me. This was my car, my baby. Ma'am, we need to get you to the hospital, Officer Johnson said, but his voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. The paramedics are on scene now. David arrived just as the police were helping me into the patrol car. He had broken every speed limit getting home from work, his face white with terror. We held hands in the back seat while Officer Johnson drove us to Regional Medical Center, neither of us able to speak. The crash site was on the way to the hospital. Officer Johnson slowed down as we passed it, and I wished he had not. My Honda Civic was wrapped around a massive oak tree, the front end completely destroyed. The driver's side door was hanging open, and there was broken glass everywhere. Tyler Martinez was standing next to an ambulance, talking to a paramedic. He had a small bandage on his forehead and was gesturing with his hands like he was telling some kind of story. He was walking around, moving normally, completely fine. My baby girl was in a helicopter. At the hospital, a doctor met us in the emergency room. Dr. Patricia Wells was a pediatric trauma specialist, and the look on her face told me everything I needed to know before she said a word. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I need to talk to you about Emma's condition. She has suffered severe trauma from the collision. She has a traumatic brain injury, 3 broken ribs and internal bleeding. We have her stabilized for now, but the next 24 hours are critical. Is she going to live? David asked, his voice barely a whisper. We are doing everything we can. She is a fighter, and she is getting the best care possible. But I want you to be prepared for a long road ahead. They took us to the NICU, where Emma was surrounded by machines. She looked so tiny in the hospital bed, her little body covered in wires and tubes. A ventilator was breathing for her, and monitors were tracking her heart rate, brain activity, and oxygen levels. I collapsed in the chair next to her bed and started crying. Not the kind of crying you do at sad movies, but the deep, painful sobbing that comes from your soul. My baby girl was fighting for her life because some spoiled teenager thought stealing cars was fun. The young man who was driving has been released to his parents, Dr. Wells told us quietly. He had minor injuries and refused further treatment. Released, David's voice was getting louder. He nearly killed our daughter and they just let him go. I understand your frustration, but the police handle those decisions. My job is to take care of Emma." That was when Karen Martinez appeared in the doorway of the NICU. She was dressed in a business suit, her hair perfectly styled, and she was talking on her phone. "Yes, I understand the situation," she was saying to whoever was on the other end. "My attorney will handle everything. This was clearly an accident, and we need to make sure Tyler's future is not destroyed over one mistake." One mistake. She called nearly killing my baby one mistake. I stood up from Emma's bedside and walked toward Karen. David tried to stop me, but I was beyond reason. "Your son stole my car with my baby inside," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "Look at her. Look at what he did to my daughter." Karen glanced at Emma for maybe 2 seconds, then looked back at me with cold, calculating eyes. "I am very sorry this happened," she said in a tone that suggested she was not sorry at all. "But Tyler was not thinking clearly. He has been under a lot of stress with college applications. I am sure we can work something out that benefits everyone." "Work something out? My daughter might die because of what your son did." "Let's not be dramatic. Children are resilient. I am sure she will be fine." Karen Martinez looked at my dying baby girl and called me dramatic. She turned around and walked away, her heels clicking on the hospital floor as she continued her phone conversation with her lawyer. Over the next few hours, we learned more details about the crash. Tyler had been driving at 60 miles per hour in a 35-mile-per-hour zone. He was texting on his phone at the time of impact. Blood tests showed he had marijuana and alcohol in his system. He had stolen my car, driven drunk and high, crashed while texting, and nearly killed my baby. Then he was released to his parents like nothing had happened. But Tyler Martinez and his mother had no idea what they had just unleashed. As I sat next to Emma's hospital bed, listening to the machines keeping her alive, I made a promise to myself and to her. This was not over, not even close. The meeting with the attorney was our first glimpse into how broken the system really was. Robert Chen was one of the best criminal lawyers in the state, and even he looked frustrated as he explained what we were facing. "Tyler Martinez is a minor, and his family has connections," he said, spreading police reports across his desk. "The charges will likely be reduced to reckless driving and unauthorized use of a vehicle. He might get community service and probation." Community service. David slammed his hand on the desk. "He nearly killed our daughter while driving drunk and high. How is that community service?" "Because he is 17, has no prior adult convictions, and his mother has already hired the best defense attorney money can buy. They are going to argue that Tyler was confused, that he thought the car belonged to a friend, that he did not realize there was a baby inside." I stared at the police photos of my destroyed car. The security camera footage shows him looking right at Emma's car seat. Security footage can be challenged. Camera angles can be questioned. His attorney will create reasonable doubt about what Tyler could actually see. While we were learning how the legal system was going to fail us, Karen Martinez was busy making sure the community failed us too. She called an emergency HOA board meeting and painted me as an unstable mother who had left her car unlocked with a baby inside. This tragic incident could have been prevented if proper safety measures had been followed, she announced to the 5-person board. "We cannot allow Willowbrook Estates to become liable for the poor decisions of individual residents." The minutes from that meeting were leaked to me by Mrs. Chen, who had friends on the board. Karen was arguing that I was partially responsible for what happened to Emma because I had left my car unlocked. She was setting up the HOA's defense in case I tried to sue them for Tyler's actions. Then the insurance company joined the attack. Mutual Family Insurance sent me a letter denying coverage for Emma's medical bills, claiming that my contributory negligence voided the policy. Mrs. Thompson left her vehicle unlocked and unattended with a minor child inside, creating the opportunity for this incident to occur. This constitutes negligent behavior that contributed to the resulting damages. Emma's medical bills were already over $200,000 and climbing. Without insurance coverage, we were looking at financial ruin on top of everything else. The police investigation was going nowhere fast. Detective Maria Santos was handling the case, and she seemed genuinely frustrated with the pressure she was getting from above. "I have Tyler dead to rights on multiple felonies," she told me during one of our meetings. "Theft of a motor vehicle, child endangerment, driving under the influence, reckless driving causing bodily harm. But every time I try to move forward, I get phone calls from the district attorney's office telling me to slow down." Phone calls from who? People who golf with Tyler's grandfather. People who go to the same country club as the Martinez family. People who think a 17-year-old boy's future is more important than justice for your daughter. While Emma underwent her third surgery to repair internal bleeding, Tyler Martinez returned to school like nothing had happened. I saw him driving a new truck through the neighborhood, music blasting, the same reckless behavior that had nearly killed my daughter. The HOA violation started coming faster after that. My mailbox was the wrong height. My grass was too long. My car was parked 6 inches over the property line. Each violation came with a $50 fine and a threat to place a lien on my house if I did not pay immediately. I was dealing with my daughter's life-threatening injuries, fighting the insurance company, and trying to navigate a legal system that seemed designed to protect Tyler Martinez. But Karen Martinez was more worried about my mailbox height. The breaking point came during Emma's 4th week in the hospital. Karen Martinez showed up at the NICU again, this time with a fruit basket and a fake smile. "I wanted to check on little Emma," she said, setting the basket on the counter. "I hope you know that Tyler feels terrible about what happened." If he feels so terrible, why has he not been arrested yet? Well, that is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. Tyler is a good boy who made a mistake. He has his whole life ahead of him. College, career, family. It would be such a shame to see all of that destroyed over one incident. One incident that nearly killed my daughter. Karen's fake smile never wavered. "I think you should consider how fortunate you are that Tyler was not seriously injured. Imagine if something had happened to him while he was in your car. That would have been a real tragedy." I looked at this woman, standing next to my daughter's hospital bed, telling me I should be grateful that the person who nearly killed Emma had not been hurt in the process. That was the moment I decided to destroy Karen Martinez and her precious son. The research started that same night. While David slept in the uncomfortable hospital chair next to Emma's bed, I sat in the hallway with my laptop, diving deep into the world of HOA governance and Karen Martinez's reign of terror. Willowbrook Estates HOA had over $3 million in community funds, collected from monthly dues, special assessments, and penalties. As board president, Karen had almost unlimited access to these accounts, with minimal oversight from the other board members. The more I dug into the financial records, the more irregularities I found. Payments to Martinez Consulting Services for community management expertise. Reimbursements for business meals at expensive restaurants. Travel expenses for HOA conferences in Hawaii and Vegas. Over the past 3 years, Karen had funneled nearly $200,000 from community funds into her own pocket. But the money trail was just the beginning. I started reaching out to former residents of Willowbrook Estates, people who had moved away under mysterious circumstances. What I found was a pattern of harassment, intimidation, and corruption that went back years. The Hendersons had been forced out after their teenage son had a party that got too loud. Karen filed noise complaints every single day for 2 months until they gave up and moved. The Patels faced constant violation notices for inappropriate landscaping until they spent $15,000 redoing their entire yard, then moved anyway when Karen found new things to complain about. Janet Morrison had been the previous HOA treasurer before Karen pushed her out. She agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown, and what she told me changed everything. Karen has been stealing money from the HOA for years, Janet said, sliding a folder across the table. I tried to bring it up at board meetings, but she had already corrupted the other members. When I pressed the issue, she started a campaign to destroy my reputation. The folder contained copies of financial documents, bank statements, and email communications that showed Karen's embezzlement in black and white. Janet had been gathering evidence for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to use it. "Why did you not report this to the police?" I asked. "I tried. Karen's husband plays golf with the police chief. Her brother-in-law is a county commissioner. She has connections everywhere. But maybe now, with what happened to your daughter, people will finally listen." I hired a private investigator named Marcus Webb, a former police detective who specialized in insurance fraud and corporate corruption. Marcus was expensive, but he was worth every penny. Within 2 weeks, Marcus had documented Tyler's ongoing criminal behavior that Karen had been covering up: drug dealing to other high school students, multiple hit-and-run accidents that were never reported, vandalism of community property that was blamed on unknown suspects. The most damning evidence came from Tyler's own social media accounts: videos of him smoking marijuana while driving, photos of him spray painting graffiti on community walls, text messages bragging about how his mother would fix everything whenever he got in trouble. "This kid is a one-man crime wave," Marcus told me as he showed me the evidence files. "And his mother has been enabling him by using her position to cover up his crimes." I also discovered that Karen had been using HOA funds to pay for Tyler's legal defense. She had written checks to his attorney, claiming they were for community legal consultation. More embezzlement, more corruption, more evidence of how the Martinez family had been stealing from our community for years. The plan started coming together in my mind. I could not rely on the police, the courts, or the insurance companies to deliver justice. They were all part of the same corrupt system that protected people like the Martinez family. But I could expose the truth in a way that would be impossible to ignore or cover up. I started reaching out to other families who had been victimized by Karen and Tyler. The Johnsons, whose car had been keyed after they complained about Tyler's speeding. The Davis family, who had been hit with thousands of dollars in bogus HOA fines after questioning Karen's leadership. The Garcias, who had been forced to spend their life savings fighting Karen's harassment campaign. One by one, they agreed to help. They were tired of being bullied, tired of being afraid, tired of watching the Martinez family destroy their community with impunity. They wanted justice as much as I did. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the 3rd Thursday of the month. Karen always made sure these meetings were sparsely attended by scheduling them at inconvenient times and failing to properly notify residents. But this time would be different. This time, we would be ready for her. While Emma continued her slow recovery in the hospital, fighting to regain her strength after the trauma Tyler had inflicted on her, I was preparing to fight for something bigger. Not just justice for my daughter, but accountability for everyone who had been hurt by the Martinez family's reign of terror. Karen Martinez had no idea what was coming, but she was about to find out. The Willowbrook Estates Community Center had never seen a crowd like this. Usually, HOA meetings drew maybe 10 or 15 residents, mostly retirees with nothing better to do. But on this Thursday evening, over 200 people packed the room. Every chair was filled, people were standing along the walls, and more residents were gathered outside trying to get in. Karen Martinez looked nervous as she called the meeting to order. She was used to controlling small groups of intimidated neighbors, not facing a room full of angry homeowners who had finally had enough. "I would like to call this meeting to order," she said, tapping her gavel against the podium. "We have a lot of business to cover tonight, so I ask that everyone remain calm and respectful." She started with the usual boring reports about landscaping contracts and maintenance schedules, clearly hopping to run out the clock before anyone could bring up more serious issues. But I was not going to let that happen. "Point of order," I said, standing up from my seat in the front row. "I would like to address the board about financial irregularities in our community accounts." Karen's face went white. "Mrs. Thompson, you are not on the agenda for tonight. If you have concerns, you can submit them in writing for review at next month's meeting." Actually, according to the HOA bylaws, any homeowner can address the board during the open comment period. I believe we are in that period now. Janet Morrison, the former treasurer, stood up next to me. "I second Mrs. Thompson's right to speak. As a former board member, I can confirm that she is following proper procedures." Karen looked around the room desperately, but she was trapped by her own rules. "Fine, you have 5 minutes." I walked to the front of the room and connected my laptop to the projection screen. The first slide showed Karen's photograph next to the words, "Financial fraud and embezzlement." Over the past 3 years, Karen Martinez has stolen nearly $200,000 from our community funds, I announced. The room erupted in gasps and angry murmurs. She has used our money to pay for personal expenses, family vacations, and legal fees for her son's criminal activities. I clicked through the slides showing bank statements, fraudulent invoices, and forged documents. Each piece of evidence was more damning than the last. The crowd was getting angrier with every revelation. "This is ridiculous," Karen shouted over the noise. "These documents are fake. Mrs. Thompson is clearly unstable and trying to destroy my reputation because she is upset about her daughter's accident." "Accident?" I turned to face her directly. "Your son stole my car with my baby inside. He drove drunk and high and nearly killed her. That was not an accident, Karen. That was attempted murder." I clicked to the next slide, showing Tyler's social media posts bragging about his crimes. Videos of him smoking marijuana while driving, photos of him vandalizing community property, text messages about how his mother would fix everything for him. "Your son is a criminal and you have been using HOA funds to cover up his crimes," I continued. "Drug dealing, hit-and-run accidents, vandalism, theft. And every time he gets in trouble, you make it disappear with our money." The crowd was on their feet now, shouting questions and demands for answers. Karen tried to maintain control, but she had lost the room completely. "I call for an immediate vote of no confidence in Karen Martinez," shouted Mr. Rodriguez from across the room. "All in favor." Nearly every hand in the room went up. Karen's support had evaporated in a matter of minutes. "You cannot do this," Karen protested. "I am the board president. I was elected to this position." "You were elected to represent our interests, not steal our money," Janet Morrison replied. "And according to the bylaws, a two-thirds majority vote can remove any board member for cause. I think we have our two-thirds majority." That was when the police arrived. Detective Santos had been waiting outside, and she entered the community center with two other officers just as the vote was being counted. "Karen Martinez, you are under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy," Detective Santos announced. "You have the right to remain silent." The room fell silent as Karen was handcuffed in front of the entire community. Her carefully constructed image of respectability crumbled in an instant. The woman who had terrorized our neighborhood for years was finally being held accountable. But we were not done yet. "There is one more thing," I announced as Karen was being led away. "I have also provided evidence to the district attorney's office about Tyler Martinez's criminal activities and his mother's attempts to cover them up. As of this afternoon, Tyler has been arrested on multiple felony charges including theft of a motor vehicle, child endangerment, and driving under the influence." The crowd erupted in cheers. Tyler Martinez, who had walked away scot-free after nearly killing my daughter, was finally facing real consequences for his actions. Marcus Webb, my private investigator, had presented all of our evidence to the state attorney's office that morning. With Karen's protective influence removed and the financial crimes providing additional leverage, the prosecutors were finally willing to pursue serious charges against Tyler. As the police cars drove away with Karen Martinez in the back seat, I felt something I had not experienced in months. Not quite satisfaction, not quite relief, but something close to both. Justice was finally being served. The community center was buzzing with excited conversations as neighbors who had been afraid to speak up for years finally felt free to share their stories. The Martinez family's reign of terror was over, and Willowbrook Estates could finally begin to heal. 6 months later, I was sitting in Emma's nursery, watching her play with her favorite stuffed elephant. She was babbling and giggling, reaching for the colorful toys hanging above her crib. Her doctors said it was a miracle. The brain injury that could have left her permanently disabled had healed completely. She was developing normally, hitting all her milestones and showing no signs of lasting damage from the crash. The first time she smiled at me after the accident, I cried for an hour. It was such a simple thing, but it meant everything. My baby girl was going to be okay. Karen Martinez was not so lucky. She was convicted on 14 counts of embezzlement and fraud, sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, and ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA. Her house was seized to cover the stolen money, and her reputation was destroyed beyond repair. The woman who had terrorized our community for years was now just another number in the prison system. Tyler's case took longer to resolve, but justice eventually prevailed. He was tried as an adult due to the severity of his crimes and sentenced to 2 years in juvenile detention, followed by 5 years of probation. He was also ordered to pay restitution for Emma's medical bills, which his family's insurance company finally covered after the criminal conviction. The community has changed dramatically since the Martinez family's downfall. The new HOA board, led by Janet Morrison, has implemented transparent financial controls and eliminated the culture of fear that Karen had created. Property values have actually increased as word spread that Willowbrook Estates was no longer controlled by corrupt bullies. Several families who had been driven out by Karen's harassment have moved back to the neighborhood. The Hendersons bought a house 2 streets over from their old place. The Patels purchased a beautiful home near the community center. Janet Morrison was elected as the new board president by an overwhelming margin. Emma is now 9 months old, crawling everywhere and getting into everything. She loves to play peekaboo and claps her hands when she hears music. Sometimes I look at her and think about how close we came to losing her, how different our lives would be if Tyler Martinez had killed her that day. But I also think about the lesson we taught our community, that wealth and connections cannot protect you from consequences forever, that ordinary people can fight back against corruption and win, that standing up to bullies is not just the right thing to do, it is the necessary thing to do. The Martinez family thought they were untouchable. They thought their money and influence made them immune to accountability. They were wrong. If you are dealing with HOA bullies, corrupt officials, or entitled people who think the rules do not apply to them, remember Emma's story. Document everything. Build your case carefully. Find allies who have been hurt by the same people. And never give up because justice might be slow, but it is not impossible. Sometimes the system fails us. But sometimes, if we fight hard enough and smart enough, we can make the system work. Emma Martinez nearly died because of Tyler Martinez's crimes and Corinne Martinez's corruption. But she survived, and they did not. Justice was served, our community was saved, and my daughter gets to grow up in a world where actions have consequences. That is all any parent can ask for.